really important session for us today to grow our learning and understanding around our po and Waharoa, so we can do the hard work of our carver's justice and sharing our stories with our community. So welcome, Damon. Always great to have you here. I want to pass over to Damon, who's going to lead us this morning.
Ka pai whanau, tēnā koutou, nau mai, hoki mai koutou ki te kura, tēnei rā wakaritenga. Ko te mea tuatahi, ka mihi atu ki a koutou I tēnei wā. Ka tahi anō rā, ka huri ngā whakaaro nui atu rā ki a Julie. Me te whakaaro anō rā, kai te haere ia ki te hōhipera, kai reira ka wakatika ka wakarite ai, ia rātau I tōna Māui-Tikitiki-a-Taranga. Mo reira I runga I tērā, kai roto e te Karakia, ka whakaaro nui ki ai. So whānau, just welcome back to Kura, but just to send all of our thoughts this morning and during the week to Julie with her recent news. And in our Karakia today, if we just think of her as we uplift her wairua during this challenging time for her and her whānau. So with that, our Karakia for us this morning, we will all do Wakataka Te Au. Toru wā.
Wakataka Te Au ki te ruru, Wakataka Te Au ki te tonga, Kia mā kina ki uta, Kia mā tara ki tai. E ake ana te atakura, e tio, e luka, e oru, T.A. Mauri-ora.
Ka pai, T.A. Mauri-ora, e noho. Tēnā koutou. Renee, ora mai. And welcome to us all this morning. So with that, we're going to explore the narrative of the Po. And what I want to say to you is, I know that you'll be sitting there feeling really, really nervous. You're probably thinking, what am I going to do? How am I going to teach my kids? What am I going to teach them about? And what I can tell you is that this kaupapa, the narratives and the stories, they will evolve. You won't be expected to know all the stories on the first day to tell the kids the stories. But what's really important is that we explore the Māori worldview of creation, because a lot of the stories that we're going to be exploring, they all link back to the Māori creation story, narrative. So the word myths we don't say anymore, we say narratives and stories. Because a myth implies what? What does a myth imply? It's not true. But from a Māori world perspective, it is. And there are elements that sit inside this kaupapa that are, some may see it as being a religious belief. But what I like to explain, what I like to think about there is, it's a way of explaining phenomenon and how things came to be. And like other indigenous cultures or other cultures, everyone has that origin story. So in the Bible, the origin story talks about, anyone know? Book of Genesis. Adam and Eve. Okay. Who knows any other creation stories?
It's just let there be light.
Sorry?
It's just let there be light.
Let there be light. Let there be light. And there are some comparisons. There are some comparisons as well between let there be light and the Māori mythology, or rather the Māori narrative and story. So that's what we're going to explore this morning. But to understand the names of the Po, we've got to take a few steps back. But before we get into that, kōrero, what I thought we'd do is just quickly turn around and tell the person next to you what was the best thing about your holiday. Where you go? What was the best thing about your holiday? Have a kōrero, 1 minute. You might go through. So, anyone like to share? What's the best thing about your holiday?
Family time.
Ka pai. Te kāpoi. Yes, family time.
Not rushing.
Not rushing. Ka pai. It's great. So, yeah, but that all seems like in the past, right? Like happened a while ago, because now we're back into the mode of school, and we're back into 2023. Interesting year it's going to be. It's already started off very interesting for us. So So in that regard, we come now to our kōrero today. So what I want you to quickly do now, and I'm just aware the internet's going to go off soon, and just because we've got Dennis doing some mahi, I've tried to hook up to my phone, but the internet connection's a little bit tricky. But I just want to show this quick video, and then we're going to have a kōrero about it. Ka pai? Okay.
This is a Māori tale of creation. The story of Rangi Nui, the Sky Father, and Papa Tuanuku, the Earth Mother, and how the heavens and the earth were created. In the beginning lived the Earth Mother, Papa Tuanuku, and the Sky Father, Rangi Nui. And they dwelt together in each other's embrace. In between them lived their children, but their children lived in darkness, and they had to crawl between the narrow spaces between their parents. So they had never seen the light, neither had they stood. After much complaining, one of the sons came up with a plan that he would separate his parents. His name was called Tāne. Tāne placed his feet against his father, and with his hands he placed on his shoulders, he placed against his mother, and with all of his might he began to push, and he pushed, and he pushed, pushing his father high into the sky. Separating his parents. To cover his mother's nakedness, Tāne was charged with clothing her with all the beautiful greenery with the forest and with bird life. Became known as Tāne Mahuta, the god of the forest. Because of the longing for his beloved, Rangi the Sky Father would cry down his tears from the heavens. His tears would fill up the many crevices and become the many lakes, rivers and seas.
We're just going to stop it there. So one of the, so I just want you to have a quick talk to the person next to you. Is this the first time you've heard this story? And if it's not, what else do you know about the story? So, so just have a kōrero with someone next to you. Talk about Rangi and Papa. What do you know about Rangi and Papa? And the creation story. So, yeah, have a kōrero, a couple of minutes, right? So, what else can you add to that story that you know about? That's like the shortened version.
Well, the rest of the children.
There are other children. There are other children. So you imagine the children all being all hunched over, all in darkness. They were hunched over with both Rangi and Papa clasping a hold of one another. It was all dark. But in that darkness, there was like a little speck of light. And that little speck of light engaged curiosity. And from that curiosity, there came this wanting to find out more about the light. And so from the darkness, Te Pō, came Te Ao Marama. But Te Ao Marama, which was the light, that didn't come until they were parted, until they were separated. Was Tāne the only one that tried to separate his parents?
Wasn't there quite a long discussion between all of the children before?
Yes, big discussion, yeah, because there was one that never agreed. Anyone know who that was?
Was that Ronganui?
No, but
Tāne?
no. One of them is carved in your Pou. The guardian of the winds.
Oh, Tawhirimatea.
Tawhirimatea. He was the only one that didn't agree. But the others all tried, had an attempt. Tūmatauinga, it said he was the guardian of war, so he took a taiaha to try to slash his parents apart. So it was Tāne Mahuta who was the one that was successful in parting his parents. And then from the flooding in of the light, Te Ao Marama, then came this booming curiosity. But at the same time, Tawhirimatea had held his breath for the time it took for them to part his parents, and he then went out to seek revenge on his brothers for what they did. So that's a kōrero about Tawhirimatea. Anyone know any of the other names of the brothers? So we've got Tāne Mahuta, he goes by many names. He's got other names as well. There's Tawhirimatea, Tangaroa. Any other names? Māui-Tikitiki-a-Taranga. Rongo Mātāne is another one. And so there's a way for us to remember the names, and we have a Karakia, which is called Tātai Whakapapa. And I put this here for a good reason, because we probably need to all learn this Karakia. That would be one of the first things that we learn. So it's all about the Whakapapa. So you can see their names. So you can see Rongo, you can see Tāne Mahuta, Tangaroa. So if I say Tangaroa is the guardian of sea. Tūmatauinga is said to be the guardian of war, but also the guardian of mankind, because it's from him that we come from. There's another story that talks about that. Māui-Tikitiki-a-Taranga, the guardian of uncultivated food, so it's food that you would forage for in the forest. Tawhirimatea, the guardian of the winds. And then, of course, Rangi and Papa. So Rangi Nui, the sky father, Papa Tuanuku, the earth mother. Okay, so the Karakia, if you just repeat after me, we'll go through each of the lines, but this will be a Karakia that we will learn, which will help us to begin our journey to understand the creation story that we will unpack with our tamariki and our community. So, first line, I'll just say the line, one line at a time, and then you just repeat after me. Ko rangi, ko papa, ka puta.
Ko rangi, ko papa, ka puta.
Ko rongo, ko tāne mahuta.
Ko rongo, ko tāne mahuta.
Ko tangaroa.
Ko tangaroa.
Ko tūmatauinga.
Ko tūmatauinga.
Ko Māui-Tikitiki-a-Taranga.
Ko Māui-Tikitiki-a-Taranga.
Ko Tawhirimatea.
Ko Tawhirimatea.
Tokona te rangi ki runga.
Tokona te rangi ki runga.
Ko papa ki raro.
Ko papa ki raro.
Ka puta te ira tangata.
Ka puta te ira tangata.
Ki te whai au ki te ao marama.
Ki te whai au ki te ao marama.
E rongo wakairia ake.
E rongo wakairia ake.
Ki runga.
Ki runga.
Kia tīna.
Kia tīna.
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 Uie.
Uie.
Tai ki e.
Tai ki e.
So its translation is Rangi and Papa gave birth to rongo, to Tāne Mahuta, to Tangaroa, to Tūmākauinga, to Māui-Tikitiki-a-Taranga, to Tawhirimatea. Now, it should be noted that there were 70 children, and all the children were all male. All the children were male. So the only female at the time was Papa Tuanu. The support pole of Rangi, above, of Papa below, beget the mortal being of the world of light. Orongo raised these words up high so that they become firm or fixed, permanent, bound, firm. So this karakia, it's also a waiata. There's also a tamariki version that we can use as well for them to remember it, that goes with a beat. So, you know, we can go through those different varieties, but for now, we need to have a look at this and start to learn it ourselves. So this karakia really begins to embed our understanding about our pou, our carvings, and te ao Māori. So te ao Māori it's important to understand that this body of knowledge is what is referred to as the lower jaw of knowledge, te kauwairaro. The upper jaw is the kauwairunga, because there's another level that goes beyond this. But in our Whakapapa kōrero, in our genealogy, we can all link ourselves back to Rangi and Papa. To Rangi and Papa. And so a lot of the children are all connected to the environment. So whenever there is an occasion or an event that involves us having to go into the bush or going to the sea or growing kumara, then the guardians are who we would say our karakia to. Our karakia to. So it's really important to understand the origins of te ao Māori, because the pou that we have here are all connected to that kōrero, this kōrero here, Rangi and Papa. So just quickly have a kōrero with the person next to you. So, you know, how do you think, because there's, the challenge here is explaining this to our tamariki and us firstly trying, you know, getting an understanding of it ourselves. So, you know, I'm probably highly recommending that we, for now, just take our children to the pou and tell them the names. But then over the next term, we need to evolve the kaupapa so that we're ready to impart some of our knowledge to our tamariki during the term and into term 2. So that's something that we need to really think about quite hard. So yeah, so just quickly have a talk with the person next to you. What are some of the concerns? What are some of the worries you might have? You know, there does sit at the base of this kaupapa the religious kōrero, and we all know that in that religious kōrero, you know, only schools of special character can do that. And then there are, of course, families that have their own beliefs, even kaiako that have their own beliefs, and that becomes a challenge as well in terms of how do I teach something that I'm not quite au fait about or I'm not quite okay about. So those are some of the challenges that we're going to have moving forward as we unpack the kaupapa. So yeah, have a kōrero with the person next to you. Give you a minute or two. Bye-bye. Please discuss some of the worries and some of the concerns that you might have. What are some of the worries and concerns? I mean, off the bat, I know that anything in terms of te ao Māori, there's always going to be the fear that someone's going to come to say to you, that's not right. You know, I've had that many times. That's not right. I know the story to be like this. And then you go, well, okay, well, this is a version that I've been told. This is one that we are teaching in our school. So, and that's always, you know, a really good way to explore other people's versions. So then maybe it's an invitation to say, oh, that's great. How about you come in and tell us more about that for you? And let's see where we can go from there. So I know that's one of the worries. What else? What other worries might there be?
I know we've talked in the past around that religious aspect, and we've worked with families, especially around the carvings too. You know, they just had questions around the narratives. and what their children would be learning about. But once we were really open and transparent, it worked out fine, didn't it?
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's,
I think it's people who have religious belief trying to make a place for that in their own beliefs with their children, because with their children is the key aspect. It's what do I know, what do I want my children to know about that, and how might that conflict with what I've been teaching them about our Christian values. So yeah, I think there's more conversation to happen in that space, but it is a place where we need to also show some understanding around Te Ao Māori, or the world of Te Ao Māori, because all of what we've just seen here this morning, a lot of our kōrero all comes back to this. It all comes back to this, and given that we're looking to we've got responsibilities around Te Tiriti o Waitangi, we've got responsibilities around how we explore Te Ao Māori and our kura. This is part of that kōrero. So, what are the other worries?
Pronunciation.
Yeah, pronunciation. It's always there, and that's well, I think that's it's quite funny when it's said pronunciation, But that's all to do with practice and being confident in yourself. So the best way to do that is to practice with each other, to build confidence. And even the kids, like the kids are pretty good at and done respectfully, they can help you with that. They become the tuakana and you become the taina. Tuakana and taina is not necessarily about age. It's more about your expertise and what you bring to the relationship. So that's something for us to consider as well. Any other worries?
Remembering it all.
Yes, that's right. Remembering everything, writing it down. So that's another worry. Anything else? So I think I know that part of this is all about building confidence and competence amongst ourselves. And so within our whānau, within the Frankley School whānau, we'll be able to do that together. And there's no rush, There's absolutely no rush for you to go and know everything. But to explore narratives and to explore stories that are common with us all, so that we've all got the same version is really important. Really important. So and good for the kids. But for us, it's about developing that understanding ourselves. So in this kōrero here, we've got a mention of Tāne Mahuta. So Tāne Mahuta, of course, is the pou that's facing towards Te Aratika, the bush track. And Tāne Mahuta is in reference to the forest, because he's a guardian of the forest. And as the video talked about, he clothed his mother with the trees, insects and the birds. So it's said that he is the procreator, if you like, and he is the one that was able to provide us with what we have here in terms of the bush track. And that's why we put Tāne Mahuta there. And Tāne Mahuta is carved. Kenny, do you want to mention some of the way that he is carved? You carved him with a...
I was told that he had a top notch, so he's got a big top notch on top there, and with his hair coming down. What else was there?
His beak?
Oh yes, what I done because of is it hubs?
Yes, the
The
teams,
bird hub.
the whānau teams.
Or the
The
whānau
Manu
teams. That's what they wanted on there, so I carved
Carved the manu.
the manu on there, and then I thought about, I did other carvings with where the ehu or the nose is just ordinary, but I've done a carving where I've put on a beak, which is called tanutu or tamanu, the beak of the bird. So that was another thing that I added there. So when you go up there and have a look at it, you'll see the beak, and it's like this. okay, coming down from his nose, and there's a bit that goes down from his mouth. So if you hold it right up, there's the beak there. If you close it up, but you'll see the bottom. It's, instead of it coming down to there, this bit here is coming right around here.
And we'll go and have a
Top
look.
of it.
We'll go and have a look. No. So there's the top knot, and then his hair comes down. He's wearing a korowai.
Yeah, I've carved in the korowai there. He's you know, we all got to have a bit of clothes on there, and so he's the korowai. You can interpret it, although it's black or pango. I always say it's a kiwi feathered korowai, which is, if you have a look at it, it's all thin feathers on it. And obviously on the korowai is the Frankley School shield logo, although there's nothing inside it, but there's other ways of expressing, if you know, if you're an artist. You'll say something, but oh yeah, that looks like what it is. But it was just too fine, too small to. And there was about 20 or 30 of them, and I didn't want to put all my offspring here. Didn't want to carve all those 30 of them. But so he carved all these. Nikk here, he carved all those shields into there. He made up a template, which is good. And that's another thing that you can do. We made a lot of templates to carve things because there was a lot of repetitiveness on the pose and on the maihi itself, or the Waharoa itself. So instead of drawing in 6 or 7 or 10 different things all the same, made up a little template and just round and boom, and she's all done. Cool.
So there's nothing wrong with us taking our tamariki, taking our kids to go and have a look and just explain that. So we're going to go and have a look, but you can just see the mutu o te manu just in the beak of the bird, which also talks about apartheid in just outside of Hawara, called te mutu o te manu, which that land has now been returned back to the Ngārua Hinerangi tribe that we're connected to. And it was also a place, a battle site where Titoko Waru, one of our Taranaki warriors, fought his last battle, and Von Temsky. So if you know the story of the bushranger, Von Temsky, who was brought over with the bushrangers to go and kill the Māui, pretty much. It's there that he lost his life, Von Temsky, and it was Titoko Waru that took it. So there's another connection there, but that's another story. But meantime, we'll go up and have a look at Tāne Mahuta. So take your kids there and just get them to touch the manu. That was another challenge for Kenny after giving him the challenge, both him and Nick. They were able then to carve the birds, but not only that, the first time that Kenny's used different coloured paints in his carvings, which is pretty amazing. So that's something that is connected back to the team names. So do we know the team names, the whānau teams? Kereru, Piwaiwaka, Tui, Kapai. Pukeko was on the fences when I went out to go and have a look this morning. So that's that one there. And then if we go to the Waharoa, that's another kōrero. So the Waharoa, the key part there is, and the presentation that I've got here, whānau, I'll share this with you, with Sarah, and Sarah can share it with you. The Waharoa, I've got the name, the different parts of the Waharoa. So, kōrero, and that's the figure in the middle, the maihi, and the pou that we've got here. And on each of your pou is carved an ancestor. So I think that's sort of like the first thing for us to understand. But the first thing to understand is it's a gateway. Well, I like to call it a portal, and it's a portal into the school. It's kind of like, you switch on your thinking hat as you walk through the Waharoa and you're ready for schooling. It's also a place, as Kenny will talk about a bit later on, that the Waharoa captures in the design of the net, the mata kupenga net captures all the raruraru that you might bring with you, all of those heavy burdens you might bring with you as you come to school that hinders your learning. And the idea of the Waharoa is that the mata kupenga design in it captures all of that raruraru, so that when you walk through and come into the portal of your school, you're ready, set to learn, ready, set to go. That's part of the kaupapa. And of course, you know, there for the first time, the opportunity there for our year sixes to walk through the Waharoa as they left the kura. But at the same time, they've left their legacy, their mauri, part of who they are still here within the school, like all the others that have left. But for the first time, the Waharoa was able to be part of that process. And then first day back, kōwhiri for the new tamariki and their families, they'll come through the Waharoa. So parts of the Waharoa, when we had a discussion about what we were going to have on the Waharoa, we wanted to have the new and the old logo. So they're on the Waharoa. The kōruru. So the kōruru is a link back to Taranaki Maunga, Rua Taranaki. So there's a narrative there that speaks about Taranaki. Ka hui maunga tupuna, Rua Taranaki, and the son Tahurangi, who climbed the maunga, named the maunga after his father, and that's how we get the name of our mountain. So there's a narrative that sits there, and there's a link there that will take you to that story that's on the Te Kotahitanga o Te Atiawa site. So that's a key element for us, our maunga. And of course, not only that, there's the narrative that talks about Taranaki before, or the arrival of Taranaki. There's another narrative that speaks about the Battle of the Mountains and about Taranaki's first name being Pukeonaki, and Pukeonaki that used to reside at Lake Roto Aira, Turangi the place, is where Pukeonaki resided. And then there was a battle over a woman, maunga, called Pihanga. So there's that narrative that also sits with this kōrero. And part of it is, when we think about our children and we think about our 5-year-olds through to our year zeros, if you like, through to your year sixes, how much of the story do we tell them? And there's almost like a progression of the story as the children come through the kura. You might just start at this story about the name of Taranaki, but then later on, as the children progress through the school, they'll start to learn more about Taranaki Maunga. The Manaia. So Kenny, this is not the Frankley School Waharoa, but the carvings are very similar. But the Manaia, the whole kaupapa of the Manaia, it talks about the guardians of the school that represent both the female and the male element. So we have those cards. And as we know, and as described by Kenny, there's no hiding things in Māoridom. And so in our carvings, you'll see which are female and which are male. That's really clear in the kōrero. And we were up front about that kōrero as well, right from the outset. And they represent the arms. Waharoa represent the arms. So if you imagine, if you stood and you welcomed people and you held out your arms, the kōrero and the maihi and the pou. So really, it's like a depiction of a person. It's like the symbolism of a person that's welcoming people into the kura, the Waharoa. So so these, I just need to update these pictures with your carvings. So there's the Frankley School emblem. So part of that kōrero was about the old and the new. So we've got the traditional, which is, if I looked at the Waharoa, this is on the left side, and then the new design on the right side. And you know, this is always quite a key part in terms of the established 1853. You know, if you talk to Waimata School, they say they're the oldest school in New Plymouth.
So central.
Yeah. So that's, and we've got that in record. No, well, when we get out there, there's more to say. So you just say it for me. That's when I leave. That's when I leave. So that's this one here, but you can see in the design, you can see the mata kupinga design in the background. So given that the kaitiaki, the Manaia, represents the guardians, I suppose they also represent the shape of fish, and fish we catch in a net. So, you know, you've got the net in the background there, that's all part of the kaupapa. And then there's also the taranaki style of carving that Kenny will talk about when we go outside. Oh yeah, each of the pou has got different tupuna, which we'll have a look at when we go outside. So the tupuna that we've got is Tawhirimatea. So this is Tawhirimatea. These are photos I took when I went to visit Kenny, as we were nearly at the, or it might be the week before the installation done. But you can see this kōrero, Tawhirimatea, came about from the kids. Actually, a lot of the designs came about from the kids and the kōrero that we had with them. So I should mention that the manu, the whānau teams, how do you incorporate everybody? How do you bring everybody together? You know, we've come from all nations of the world. And so Tawhirimatea being the guardian of the winds, and then we thought about the four winds, from the north, the east, or the south, the east and the west, that you can see there that with Tawhirimatea coming out of his mouth are those winds. And so he's got dreadlocks, because they're flying in the air. You know, but also on the carving we've got the raukura, which is another connection back to Parihaka and back to tohu and te whiti. So that's another narrative kind of that sits in our historical kōrero. And then you've got the awa as well, which represents the Waimea awa that flows just over here. So this is some of that kōrero. We've got Tawhirimatea, guardian of the winds, top knot flows like the wind. From his mouth blows the winds, mahoe pā. So, yeah, and then the raukura, so that's the kōrero. We've captured that kōrero there. So there's no reason why, you know, you can't go out there to tell the kids about that. That still works. It's the rest of the information that we're going to build to tell them more about. This one here is about Māui-Tikitiki-a-Taranga. So, what do you know about Māui? What's the narrative you know about Māui? Have a quick kōrero next to the person next to you, a couple of minutes, and then we'll come back. Who do you tell me about Māui?
Maui and the sun.
Right, tell me about Māui and the sun. What's that one about?
How he captured the sun, he wanted more light.
Wanted more light. Exactly right. Slowed the sun down. How did he slow the sun down?
He caught it with the net.
Caught it with the net.
Made his brothers come with him.
Yes, brothers came with
No,
him.
they didn't believe it.
Yeah,
No ropes in it.
yeah. And then he used his, well, they say the patu or the jawbone to clobber the sun to slow it down. The sun's name, of course, was Tamanui Te Rā. But what I like about that narrative is it explains phenomenon. It's an explanation of how we get daylight savings. That's its explanation. It's Māori being able to tell a story about the phenomenon that happen around us. Oh, Maui must have slowed down the sun, because Maui was, you know, he was the challenger, he was the innovator, he was the creator, he was the youngest in his family. You know, he had older brothers, but you know they all listened to him. So Maui has, he slowed down the sun. What else do we know? What other stories?
Fire.
Fire.
Yeah,
The fingernails. What happened there?
He was really cheeky. He kept on. He went and asked for fire, and then he put it out, and he go and get another nail, and come back, and then there was one fingernail left, and I can't quite remember.
Well done. Yeah. So the grandmother.
He had it. She threw it at him.
Threw it where?
She threw it at him. And it went
Yeah.
into a tree that
Yeah,
went
Yeah,
into
the
a
trees.
Kia ora, tough one. Went into the tree,
And that good tree
and
stuff.
with two different types of wood, you can create the ember of fire, right? So that was yes, and really that's another way to explain when you rub soft wood against hardwood. You know, so there's a kōrero about that. So that's another one. How Maui, but you know, think about that too. You know, challenging his koia, pushing the boundaries. You know, very cheeky, very cunning, and so Maui in his name sits a narrative. Tiki Tiki is top knot. Taranga is top knot of Taranga. So his full name is Maui from the top knot of Taranga, which speaks about his birth, because Maui was stillborn. He was stillborn. And as a form of grief, his mother cut her hair, she wrapped him in her hair, in her top knot, and then she gave him to the sea. And it was there that Maui developed and was taken care of by Tangaroa. And then he then arrived on a beach where his grandfather was. And then that's where he learned the arts and crafts, if you like, of learning through his grandfather. So he had special abilities, they say he could change himself into a bird. Those abilities. So Maui sits at our Waharoa as the example of being a student. He's the tuira. He's the student example. And then lastly, we've got at the front of our of the school, we've got Tāne Te Wānanga. So this is Tāne again. So I've got some stories here, whānau. I've got some videos that I've connected as well. So when we send the link out, you'll be able to click on the YouTube clips. But Tāne Te Wānanga is again the same Tāne. So Tāne was known by different names because of his different feats. When he separated his parents, he was known as Tāne Mahuta. And of course, that's why we have the name Tāne Mahuta given to our big, massive Kauri tree up north. That's why that is. And now, in this particular narrative, this speaks about a different kind of feat, a different achievement. Tāne Te Wānanga, which talks about Tāne, the gatherer of knowledge. And this is about the gatherer of knowledge for mortal people. So there's a narrative that speaks about that mortals came from the guardians. And because they arrived without knowing anything, Tāne had to go to a special place to find the perfect knowledge, the right knowledge for people to learn about. And so Tāne is said to have climbed the heavens. And that's why in the carvings that we'll show you, that's why in the carvings, can you see that design there, the potama? And then on our kids' kapaka uniform, we've got that potama. That potama is said to be the stairway that Tāne used when he climbed to collect these baskets of knowledge. So there's a connection between the potama design, the kete, the basket of knowledge, which there were 3, and Tāne Te Wānanga that's been carved here. So you can see up here we've got some of the explanation. Tāne has a korowoi. He's got the top knot to acknowledge his rangatiratanga, so his chieftainship. Look closely, you'll see the shield emblem on Frankley School here. The emblem on the korowoi, like we have at the back here. Ngā kete o te wānanga, so the 3 baskets of knowledge. Kete tuauri, which was knowledge of ritual, memory and prayer. Kete aronui, knowledge to help mankind. And kete tuatea, the knowledge of evil harmful to mankind. So those were the 3 different baskets that he collected. And then we got potama, stairway to knowledge that Tāne climbed to attain the baskets of knowledge. And if you have a look at some of the narratives and stories that speak about Tāne climbing the heavens, because in some iwi, they don't have Tāne. They have another person called Tāwhaki. But I was only up there a couple of weeks ago, and someone on the pai in his pai kōrero said, up here we say Tāwhaki climbed the heavens, but Tāwhaki and Tāne were the same people. They were the same, just had different names. So that was interesting for me to hear that narrative. But that's the narrative of the far north. So here for us in Taranaki, it's Tāne. So Tāne Te Wānanga. Wānanga is the Māori word for learning. Te Whare Wānanga, the house of learning, is what we call our universities. So Wānanga, when you go to a Wānanga, you go into a space of learning. Okay? So that's where Wānanga comes from, Te Wānanga. So,
Damon, can I just ask, with that knowledge of evil harmful to mankind, how would we break that down to our tamariki? How would you explain that in children's speak?
Yeah, it's, you know, I think it's the basket that's, because you can't have all good and not any of the bad. So part of that is about, you know, it's about explaining. I mean, you only got to think about the world out there, and what you know, think about Russia.
So like the opposite from monarchy for us, how we talk about monarchy would be.
And we although that's one of the baskets of knowledge, there are lessons to be learned from there. And so we could probably use that as a way of saying, well, you know, there's some of the, even although that basket was brought down, we need to understand that if you don't have knowledge of that, then you'll keep making those harmful mistakes time after time after time. But we can explore that. Like I say, this is all like 101 creation story and even the baskets of knowledge story. Yeah, so that's Tāne Te Wānanga. Then I've got a little clip there. I've got a bit more of a breakdown of each of the kete, but like I said, it's still a little bit of, so here's tuatea, so including war. So, and then that's the mākutu and whaiwhaia, the battles that happen. So that's part of the kōrero, and then there's a narrative there that speaks. I've got a little video clip there. Right, so I think that's it, because it's no good me talking about it here. We should go and have a look, right? So we're going to all go outside now. We're going to start at the back. We're going to go to Te Pou or Tāne Mahuta. Then we're going to go to the Waharoa, and then we're going to go to the front of the school. Kapai. So we just might need umbrellas or jackets just in case. But we'll head out now, whānau.